Looking to make some healthier habits this holiday season? Make sure to check out our Moving Through Midlife community over on Facebook, as we are doing a Planksgiving event where we are doing daily plank workouts. We will be doing an Advent for healthy, happy hips this holiday season, and then also have a sugar challenge, a 2-week sugar challenge that you might be interested in. Happy holidays! Episode 14, Helping Families Ease Stress and Anxiety. I am so excited to share with you today's interview with Dr. Alyssa with the Reset3 Program. She is a chiropractor, is able to provide acupuncture, and the developer of the vagus nerve treatment, where she can help you to begin easing your chronic pain, stress, and anxiety by focusing on your vagus nerve. Whether you are just now moving back into school and the workplace with this new normal, or you are already back into this constant state of go, go, go. We are at a point in time where we are all dealing with so much stress, anxiety, and added fear of not knowing everything that is happening in our world right now. Dr. Alyssa is here to provide us with so many great takeaways on how we can work on flipping our stress and anxiety responses for ourselves and our children and move more into this much needed relaxed state. So join me now as we learn more about Dr. Alyssa and her vagus nerve treatment protocol. So what got you into developing the vagus nerve treatment program?
Yeah, so have been in practice for 6 years, practicing chiropractic and acupuncture. And what I started to notice fairly early on was that people under stress didn't get better no matter what I did. And at first, as a new graduate, you think it's you, obviously. So then I would try different methods, different combinations of treatments, and it was just mind-boggling that people didn't get better when I was taught that they would if I did X, Y, and Z. So I started delving into my own research on kind of what controls healing. And it all comes back to the nervous system. So I did a deep dive into the nervous system, figured out, obviously I learned this in school, but just sort of refreshing myself and really, really diving deep into the current literature. And so really deciphering between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic state in our autonomic nervous system. So that branch of our nervous system is all the automatic stuff that we don't have to tell our body to do. So heart rate, digestion, emotions, it just happens. It regulates us. And so I kind of started to notice that people in that sympathetic fight or flight state, when they came in for treatment, or if it was chronically happening in their life, they would come in wanting to be fixed. And there was nothing I could do to make them better long-term. They'd be back in my office. So kind of switching my practice, gearing towards getting people into the parasympathetic state first, into that self-healing mode. And then I provided a couple treatments and people were getting better, way better. They weren't coming back. That old myth that once you go to a chiropractor, you have to keep going. It just doesn't exist when you treat people's vagus nerves. So I kind of developed this protocol to treat the vagus nerve itself and to activate it if it's gone dormant, so to speak, because of chronic fight or flight, and started working on activating that in people, and then providing the traditional chiropractic treatment that people sort of already know about, and people get better. So all of this stuff to activate the vagus nerve has existed since the 60s, but no one's really combining it into a treatment protocol and doing it. So I'm the first one that I know of that's combining all these different things. So I kind of put it into this proprietary method, and I've been doing it on people and measuring their heart rate variability. And it's just been amazing.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah.
Have you noticed over this past year that things have been changing? Are you seeing more people with pain, or are you noticing due to everything that's happening?
Yeah, well, I'm seeing a lot of repetitive strain in younger people. So children, like I'm used to treating children just like, sports injuries. Kids are so resilient. They get better. It's like one or two treatments and their sports injury is fixed. But now I'm treating like postural issues, and like kids are coming in with anxiety and, not like just not knowing what to do with their day to day, just these problems that kids shouldn't have. And then on top of that, you have all the adults that they're surrounded by sort of in the same boat, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of stress. And the vagus nerve is all about self-regulation. So no matter what's going on in your external environment, or what I call the biofield, you should be able to self-regulate. And so we're losing that because we're so worried about what's going on around us. And we just feel out of control of our own self because of our external environment. That's what I've seen in the last year.
Okay. Do you feel that fear affects the vagus nerve as well? Is that
yes?
Okay.
It shuts it down for sure.
Shuts it down.
Yeah, we are, through evolution, we've been wired to have negative emotions affect us more strongly, because a negative emotion is what's going to trigger fight or flight, and that's going to save our life immediately. So if you think someone's hiding in a bush and you're, in the dark, that fear is going to kick on fight or flight. The blood's going to shunt to your arms and legs. You're going to be able to run away. And that's essential for survival. But what's happening is we're not scared of someone jumping out of a bush at us. We're scared of a virus that we can't see. So it could be anywhere, right? And then we're scared to go to school. We're scared to do something wrong. We're scared to touch anything. There's lots of other stuff going on, but that's just sort of applicable to the last year.
Right. Right. And how do you feel that people can start to work through this on their own? Because one thing I've noticed for myself, and I know you are in an area, you're in Canada, right? So you're in an
just
area.
North of Toronto.
Okay. So y'all are more still in a closed state, correct? You aren't.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm in Florida, so it's definitely more open. And what I noticed over the past year, we went from 2020, where we were completely shut down and not able to do much of anything. And then the world opened back up. And when the world opened, or our area opened back up, it was one of those things where, even though we knew slowing down was important, right, I feel like it was like when everything opened back up here, it was like this switch flipped and we went back to the way it was. And I noticed for myself a lot more anxiety because we didn't kind of slowly ramp up back into it. It was like from off to on. So what would you recommend to people as we're starting to move into going back? I know some people are, just now starting to go back into this new way of living. Is there anything that you would recommend for them?
Yeah, I think what we need to do first and foremost is like reverse the percentage of our autonomic nervous system and how it's functioning. So in a roundabout way, you should be in the parasympathetic or vagus nerve state for 80% of your day. So 80% of 24 hours. So that includes sleep, right? So if you're up all night, like overthinking, or you wake up super early and you can't get back to bed, that's fight or flight.
Right.
So you should be spending 80% of 24 hours in a parasympathetic rest, digest, repair state. The 20% is a reserve. Like it's that reserve when something jumps out of a bush or like you have to fight for your life. What we've done is reverse that. Like we've been doing it for a very long time in like with our sort of like society, but it's really been accelerated in the last year. So right now, the majority of my patients, I've noticed, my friends and family, are living in fight or flight chronically 80% of their day, and maybe resting for 20%, but not even. I know a lot of people that can't get to sleep. They wake up through the night, they wake up early and then just kind of sit there, can't get back to sleep. So switching that ratio, that percentage to try and get yourself back and self-regulate back to that parasympathetic state.
So how would you recommend? So I'm thinking about myself in my day. My day starts really early, 5:30. And if I think about clients of mine, or really most of us out there, we go into high intensity workouts, we're pushing hard, working fast. And then we go straight from that and we're rushing around, whether it's rushing to then get off to work or rushing around to get the kids ready and out the door. And then it's go, go, go all day long. Then you're dealing with media, news media, and the stress and the fear and that type of thing. And then the end of the day, you're rushing around again, trying to get dinner on the table or kids to school activities and things like that. And then it's, like you said, bedtime, and we're supposed to go to bed, but then many of us have yet, and don't even add technology into that.
Yes.
Then
I know, we won't even talk about blue light or EMF. We don't even have to go there.
Right. Because then you're just constantly in this state of overwhelm. And then we're supposed to just shut it off and go to sleep. And that does not follow your 80-20 rule at all.
No,
that's
not at all.
Yeah. So really the 20%, like you said, it's completely flipped. The 20% is sleeping, yet most people aren't getting a good night's sleep because they've been in the sympathetic state for so long.
Fight or flight.
Yeah. They've been in the sympathetic state for so long throughout the day that they can't shut it off.
Yeah. And it's important to keep in mind, like cortisol is what like your body uses to get you into that sympathetic fight or flight state. And when your brain shuts off that signal to keep releasing cortisol, like say you no longer feel in danger, let's shut the cortisol down. It takes 20 minutes minimum for that to actually dissipate in your body. So even though your system stops secreting it, it's still in your blood and it's still going to your tissues for 20 minutes. So you actually have to make an effort to get out of fight or flight for at least 20 minutes before you come down from fight or flight.
Oh, wow.
So imagine that like roller coaster.
I'm stressed.
So you're having stresses.
Yeah.
You're having stresses throughout the day. Yeah. And if they're happening in like quicker than 20 minutes, then you're never getting out of fight or flight.
Right. And so is there one thing that you recommend people the most? Like what, if you had 5 minutes to say, this is what you need to do, what would be that first thing that you would recommend to people?
Well, for sure it would be breathing, because I've seen it in my vagus nerve treatments when I have people hooked up to an HRV monitor, which is essentially a measure of how much vagus nerve activity there is. We can do all these things that I know activate it. And the second I get them into a good breathing pattern, their HRV just skyrockets. So that is what I've seen for my own eyes to be the most potent and powerful. Because you have to remember, our system is set up so we're perceiving things. So we have neuroception and perception. And that's how our body's always gauging what's going on in our environment and whether or not we're safe. So neuroception is your nervous system detecting safety or not. Perception is your brain's interpretation. So if something like bad happens in a traffic jam and you trigger a memory of a car accident that happened 5 years ago and it makes you more stressed, that's perception. That's happening in the brain. But you can alter your neuroception. So the feedback coming in by tricking your nervous system. And that's where breathing comes in. So say you're experiencing something really stressful. We tend to get shallow, rapid breathing. Or you might not even be there. You might be like stressed in your mind and you just need a way to calm down. If you focus on deep, extended exhales, you will trick your body into thinking everything is cool and calm, because your brain, when it detects stress, it detects danger. It wants to kick on fight or flight to save your life. But if you are constantly giving it feedback to override that by breathing deeply, slowly, and extending the exhales, your brain starts to go, okay, we think we're under stress, but we're obviously not. Like you wouldn't be able to hold a long, slow exhale if you were running from a predator. So it's sort of like, it's calibrated to sort of pick up that neural feedback and override your perception.
Right. One thing that you mentioned with exhaling, breathing forcefully out. One thing I notice is when you tell someone to take a deep breath, what do they first do? They go, So they take that deep breath in, and most of us are chest breathers. So we then lift up and we're going. And does that then immediately put your body back into that?
Yeah. Because exactly that happens. You're taking a giant inhale, but what matters is the exhale. Because if you think about it, if something jumps out and scares you and then you have to run from it, the first thing you do is go, so that's like fight or flight.
Right.
So if that's the thing you do to try and calm down, it's definitely counterproductive. So you have to go like longer than you want to. I used to work at a gym, and people would be running on a treadmill, and we would be doing all outs. I worked at an Orange Theory. So if you know that workout, there's a lot of all outs.
Yeah.
So people would be running as fast as they could. And I would tell them, okay, guys, we're doing a 1 minute all out. It's the longest all out you'll ever do here. Make sure you are exhaling for a very long time, longer than you're inhaling. I know you think you need oxygen, but you need to blow off that CO2. You need to trick your body into thinking everything's okay. Because most people, what I noticed working at a high intensity interval training facility, it attracted people who had high intensity lives. And there's no balance, right? So they'd be in the office stressed all day. They'd throw together a dinner for their kids, and then they'd hit the gym and do a HIIT workout. And I'm going like, where's the balance? Like, your body doesn't know that this is exercise. It doesn't know the difference between your stressful day and your stressful workout. It's just stress. Your brain's inside your skull. It doesn't have anything except the feedback you're giving it. So it's just stress. So then your sleep at night is basically exhaustion. It's not rest.
Right.
Yeah. My supervisors hated me because I would tell people, you need yoga, you need meditation. You need to knock your gym membership back. Like, come once a week, because I know you love this interval workout, but you really need a balance.
Yeah. Well, and everybody's feeding off this constant go, and not relaxing as much. So how can we move towards that? How can we start to, other than the breathing, like any recommendations for us to help us start to calm down and flip that 80-20? I know we can't all do it at the same time. We're already backward, so backwards.
Yeah.
So how can we start to work on that?
So you want to constantly be like changing how you're viewing things going on. So I teach people to do like a 30,000 foot above view of what's going on. So when you imagine that, you take yourself out of the immediate situation, and your brain and body perceive that as like not as vulnerable. So you're not as fearful of what's going on when something's stressing you out, because you've moved away from it. And then kind of taking that stress out of the equation by activating your vagus nerve. So you're changing the way you perceive the stress that's going on. And you can do that through many ways, right? Like you can physically activate your vagus nerve, or you can change the perception in your brain. And you can do that through neural pathway rewiring. And we could talk about my program. That's what I do in my Reset3 program.
Okay.
You're basically, imagine your neurons in your brain, and they have tentacles attaching to, it's like a spider web of attachment. So you're constantly associating things with each other. So say you have like stress at work, and it has to do with like your work shutting down in the last year. And then you get an email from your kid's school about something happening that's pandemic related. Well, the neurons that are now the memory of your stressful event at work, other ones grab a hold of that. And so it's this intricate web of associated memories. So what you can do with neural pathway rewiring through a specific meditation process is eliminating, like pulling away those tentacles. And so you're disassociating memories from one another, so it's less threatening. Okay. But you can't get into that deep meditative mode unless your vagus nerve is activated. So I find with people, they're not even ready for the neural pathway rewiring until they switch that dominance back. And that's just sort of, you have to look at your life as living in a parasympathetic state. So you actively try at first to constantly be activating your vagus nerve. As soon as you get a stressful thought, you go right back. Nope, I'm going to start breathing. Or you splash your face. We talked about the diving reflex, or we talked about it earlier. You can splash water on your face. You can rub your ears. This all activates your vagus nerve. And you can do it to your kids too when they're stressed. You can rub their ears, any part of the ear. Like, we can get into the technical innervation. It's more of like the floor of the ear before you go into like your ear hole,
Okay.
In the lobe, and sort of like in behind. You can rub that, and that sensory feedback, that's your vagus nerve detecting that.
Okay.
So you can calm yourself and your kids down in that respect. You can also like imagine laughing, smiling, being happy, interacting with people. That's also our vagus nerve. So that's our social engagement system. Imagine you're not going to be engaged with your community if you don't feel safe. So you have to get out of fight or flight, feel safe. And then social engagement keeps your vagus nerve activated and more dominant.
Okay. And when you said a few things for children, so as they are going back into school, many of these children have a lot of fear and anxiety going back into school. So you've mentioned breathing. This is something they can work on as well, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So
For
breathing,
sure.
teaching them to breathe out, deep, long, massaging or rubbing the ear
Rubbing
itself.
the ear.
Community. So having them be with other children and that type of thing.
One of the main things too that your vagus nerve gets feedback is the food that's coming in. It's basically, it's responsible for detecting your environment. So think of all the ways that your environment comes into your body. So it comes in through the eyes, comes in through the airway, and it comes in through the digestive system. So when say your kids come home from school and you have like CNN on while you're eating dinner, that's a big no-no, because you can see something going on, say on the other side of the world, like an explosion or something. Again, your brain is seeing this explosion. We're wired for like 200 years ago. So our brains can't tell the difference between something happening on TV and something happening right in front of us. So if you're watching something stressful while you're eating, you're not in a rest and digest state. You're in a fight or flight state. And that is storage. You're shunting blood to your arms and legs. So you have no blood for digestion of whatever you're eating.
As you're saying this, it's making me think I have a child that is much more anxious than the other siblings. And I'm thinking about this whole thing with electronics and playing video games. And what you just said, I mean, we already know the effects of playing these video games and stuff, but just where the mind doesn't realize that this is, especially now, because it's so realistic what they're watching, what they're playing.
Yeah, totally. And they're like shoveling it in their faces as they're eating it. There's also the vagus nerve innervates our epiglottis. So that's the little flap that covers our windpipe when we swallow, so that to make sure food goes down our esophagus. There's a little taste bud receptor on that the vagus nerve is in control of. And it's not detecting taste, it's detecting your macronutrients, so that it can quickly send a signal to the brain and say, lots of carbs coming in, activate the carb enzymes in the liver. So it's just detecting protease, lipase, those types of enzymes that break down the macronutrients. So if you're eating fast, you're shoveling it in and you're going through fight or flight, one of the really cool autonomic adaptations is the hiccups. So if you shovel something down and your vagus nerve misfires because it didn't get the proper information, you'll get the hiccups. Like a lot of people say, I'll get the hiccups if I eat too fast. That's your vagus nerve trying to bring it back up because it missed the information.
That is fascinating. That is so interesting. So slowing down eating would be something else that we need to work on.
Totally. Making eating an experience, because everyone listening to this podcast probably doesn't live in a food scarcity state. So it's not a matter of shoveling down our food because we don't know when the next time we're going to eat. We have to slow down and make food an experience. And that way we'll eat less, because if we slow it down, we'll get that signal to our brain that we're full more accurately instead of eating and eating and eating and kind of suppressing that signal to the brain to say we're full. And then your vagus nerve will detect the proper enzymes to release. Your digestion will be fired up. Your microbes in your gut will digest it properly. All very important.
Yeah. Another thing that I was thinking about as you were mentioning this is with the breathing. I'm very posture focused with my program. And I'm thinking about, I know for myself, when I breathe, I'm that common slouch position. I grip my ribs. So I am creating not a lot of room for my diaphragm to be moving through the system. Do you have any recommendations? Because I'm not sure if this is correct information, but I feel like I remember reading something about how the diaphragm, it affects the vagus nerve. Is it like massaging the vagus nerve, or what is that connection between?
Yeah. So the vagus nerve travels down below the diaphragm. So somewhere it has to sort of like go through it. So I do a lot of diaphragm release, like muscle release in my practice for sure. So it can definitely choke it off. But another thing too is your accessory breathing muscles are like your upper traps, your scalenes, and your intercostal muscles. And so those are that like reserve for when your diaphragm shuts down. So like your diaphragm's nerve innervation comes from your neck. So if you break your neck, your accessory muscles can keep you breathing possibly. So your system always has like a backup for when something goes wrong. But when you have to keep in mind, if you're not using your diaphragm and you're breathing with your accessory muscles, you're tightening your neck, your vagus nerve travels down the front side of your vertebrae. Like imagine in behind your esophagus and your windpipe, but on the front side of your vertebrae. So if you have tech neck and you're spending your whole day like this, and then you're breathing like this and tightening the muscles, you're not getting movement through. So your vagus nerve is like sticking to the fascia. So if anyone's done physio, they've probably done like nerve flossing. If they have impingement in the shoulder, vagus nerve can get impinged too. I always tell people, I usually actually recommend the Bikram yoga series because there's a lot of extension. And a lot of people are afraid to extend, but we sort of are living our lives like this. So there's our spine is built for extension in certain areas. So I call it like a vagus nerve flossing.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, we are always here. So extension is good just to bring us back to neutral. Like we need to get back upright, and how it's affecting so much more than we even realize. So much more.
Totally. Yeah.
In your program, you talk about the biofield. So, and you had mentioned it a little bit earlier, this sensing the energy of what's going on around us. And I was just speaking to a friend about this the other day, how we both feel like we feed off of other people's energy. And unfortunately, there's a lot of negative energy that we might be getting from others. Is there anything that we can do to kind of protect ourselves so that we're not taking in all this energy?
Yeah. The vagus nerve is called like the autonomic self-regulation. So it's like building a strong foundation on your house so that you're not waking up every day worried about the weather. That's the simplest explanation I can give. But we're also born, because we're a species that's completely dependent on our mothers when we're born. We have something called empathetic resonance. So empathetic resonance, every mom is going to understand this. It's the energy you like bring as your presence to your baby that can calm them. Your baby doesn't speak your like written language yet, but you can still offer a calming effect, or you can do the opposite. I bet you a lot of mothers know like the stressful energy that they bring, and then the infant won't calm down. That's empathetic resonance. And the more we connect to our mothers, and that's our neuroception, that's our nervous system detecting safety before we can form the words, before we have the memories and that perception of safety. So we're gradually building as we're infants. That's why babies sleep so much, because they're just like storing memories and they're trying to sort of orientate themselves to the world. And it's all directed around finding a sense of safety. At the end of the day, it's you're safe and you'll survive, or there's danger. You need fight or flight. If flight or fight doesn't work, you're dead. And that's what it all comes down to.
Now, if, as you're saying this, I'm thinking again about like our children, is there anything, so if we get into this state of responding to them, because now we're creating that response within them, how do we take it down? Because like you said, it's once the cortisol hits, you still have to bring it, you've got 20 minutes before, like, there's no like speeding that up, right? So we really have to take a few minutes before we even allow ourselves to get there.
Yeah. And just know that your child's neuroception is taking in everything you're offering. So the tone of your voice, your body language, everything. I've watched parents, it's so heartbreaking to me. I've watched them say super sarcastic things to their child when their child doesn't feel safe. Like, oh, you'll be fine. Oh, and they just brush it off, but that's your child trying to feel safe in their environment. And that's what I've noticed actually with the generational change with the cell phones and being online. Like when we were in school and we were bullied, our safe space was coming home. And now kids don't have that safe space if they don't turn off their computer. And then heaven forbid their home doesn't feel like a safe environment because their parents are always sarcastic with them. We're always trying to search for a sense of safety through what we're seeing, through what we're eating, through our breathing rate, and through what people are saying to us. No pressure, parents.
I know everything you're saying, I'm like, okay, I need to fix this. I need to fix this. It's just,
but you can also be that, it feels overwhelming, but you can also be that safety while you're in the same room as them. So just be cognizant, like say you're unloading the dishwasher while your kid's studying. Don't be slamming dishes. Like, if you had a rough day and you don't really have time to unload the dishwasher, but you still have to do it. Don't do it in that stressful way. Make an effort to just make everything feel like chill and calm and cool, because that vibration and that frequency of energy is traveling through your home. And we pick up on that. We're electromagnetic. Our nervous systems are electricity, and our nervous systems are what is detecting everything in our environment. So you can't have a stressful frequency and then expect it to just dissipate and your child to be fine and happy.
And I'm thinking like one thing when you say that with slowing down, I'm thinking like turn on some slow, calming music to kind of help.
Yeah. It's the energy you bring behind everything you do, everything you eat, everything you say. What's the energy behind it? Because you know what it's like when you're talking to someone. I feel like the word's condescending. Like, they're saying words, but their energy is speaking a different way. Or someone walks into the room and you feel the energy of the room shift. Like that's a resonance. And that's the biofield of that person. That's the biofield of your words. That's our electromagnetic systems interacting with the electromagnetic fields around us. Earthing is a really great example of this. So I think Schumann resonance is like 7.83 or something like that. It's like when I tell people this, they're like, oh, no way. Well, if you know anything about batteries, if you put a car battery on the ground, it goes dead because the Earth's electromagnetic field is pulling everything out of that battery. And so that's the extra electrons in our body that cause inflammation and cause like our frequency to be disharmonious. If you step your feet on the ground, the earth immediately starts doing that. So maybe moving your kids outside to do their homework and not having their feet on like concrete, going out onto the grass. And most kids nowadays are like afraid to touch the grass because there's bugs and everything, but everything is carrying that earth frequency. And that's what we're moving further and further away from by living in high-rise buildings and wearing our shoes inside and never going outside.
And wearing our shoes outside.
Yes.
Like never letting the feet touch the soil. Like how much we're losing with that. They're just never interacting with anything. And the feet, they're a sensory organ. So we need to get them out there and moving more.
Totally.
So in regards to our environment in our home, I know you have a program on your home.
Feng Shui,
Feng Shui, okay. Is there anything that we can do just to kind of help with that?
For sure. If you think like every item in your home has an associated memory, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, that's a neural pathway in your brain. That's a tentacle taking up space. So if it's not helpful, then it's not helpful. So if you have a bunch of stuff that's associated with the vacation, and the vacation, all you think about was the crappy plane ride and like the food poisoning that you got while you were there, and like those are all associated negative things that will trip your nervous system, and you'll think of that constantly, and that's what creates chaos in our mind. So in feng shui, it's your mind is reflected in your home because it's where you spend the most amount of space. So if you have clutter everywhere and your eyes are constantly having to focus on different things because you either have meant to put it in order and you haven't, that sort of triggers you of like, oh, I'm stressed out, I haven't got to this yet. Or it's just it's just the way it is. It's always cluttered. And you're constantly looking at all these things that have associated memories that are triggering your perception in your mind. And so you can never focus. You can never slow your brain waves down because they're constantly analyzing and thinking. So it's very important to have a decluttered, like non-chaotic home, especially the front entranceway in feng shui is like one of the most important, if not the most important areas, because you want to imagine your home as your sanctuary, and your front door or wherever you come in first is a reflection of what the entire home is going to be like. So if it's the most chaotic, that's what you'll trigger with everyone who walks into your home. Imagine the energy bouncing off of everything and being chaotic. So you want to just have a clean, simple front entranceway where if your job is stressful, you at least get to walk into your house and feel calm, safe environment. The program goes into details of like colors and energy flow and positioning and stuff like that. But decluttering is like the number one feng shui tip that probably anyone that knows anything about feng shui would give.
Can you give the listeners a few things that they can work on? You've already given them a few, but is there, say, your top three or three things that you would recommend that they can start to do to start flipping that 80-20? And even if it's just going back over the points that you've already mentioned.
Yeah. Okay, for sure. So when we talked about neuroception versus perception, I just want to say with the perception point, make sure you're allowing your child to have their own life experience and you're not projecting your memories onto them. Now, as parents, obviously, we're trying to keep them safe. We don't want them to climb on the monkey bars because they might fall, but you have to allow their nervous system to determine for them what's safe. And in doing that, you won't trigger your own past memories that might be traumatic or negative. So just allowing everything in your environment, including your children, your spouse, everything that's not you, just allowing it to be, allowing everything to have its own experience. And that will make you feel safe because you won't constantly feel like you have to control. And then activating your vagus nerve whenever you think about it. It can start in the morning, brushing your teeth. When you're brushing say you brush your tongue, or sort of like the back sides, that gag reflex that can be activated, that's your vagus nerve. So you can start in the morning and then you can hum or sing, put some soft music on. Vagus nerve controls the vocal cords. So humming, singing, that activates it. You can smile at strangers because smiling at a stranger on the street gives you a sense of safety in a foreign environment. So constantly activating that vagus nerve, turning off the TV, turning off anything stressful while you're eating, and then using the breath to trick your body into thinking everything is safe when it might not be.
So really taking an active approach, like starting before. And I think that's what you're mentioning here is like the key. Start before you get yourself. Because I think most of us, the minute we get into that stressful situation, we start thinking we need to calm down. But if we can start this whole process before we even deal with the stress, we can work on helping ourselves with that.
Yeah. And that the 20% fight or flight mode, the reason it gets extended is because after something stressful happens, we continue to talk about it. We rehearse in our mind what we should have done, how we could do better, or like, I can't believe that happened. And then we tell people about it. We just perpetuate that stressful moment. And again, your brain thinks that it keeps happening. That dangerous thing that kicked you into fight or flight, your brain is like, oh my God, it's not going away. It's like, it's still here. So you have to keep in mind, we're built to handle stress, but in an acute scenario, we can't keep extending it, or that 20% reserve will just be gone. So shift that. So basically at first you have to actively do things to get your vagus nerve switched on and to get yourself to tip the scale. Once you're there, you'll start to notice when you kick into fight or flight, because now that's not your normal anymore. Your new normal is to be in rest and digest, flow, totally chill, calm, and relaxed, not caring what's going on outside of you, not feeling threatened internally by every single thing that's going on in the world. So once you recalibrate your nervous system to be in that mode, you can tip into fight or flight, and it's not a big deal because you'll come right back out of it. And in fact, the people I've seen who have tipped that scale for themselves, they don't like that fight or flight state, because you also get like that sugar rush feeling, and they get so stressed out and they can feel themselves just vibrating. And so they're like, whoa, I don't like being here. I'm going to pull myself out of it.
As you said, that all these people that are then feed that sugar, like they're just increasing it more because they're feeding themselves with sugar, which is just going to continue to make it go more.
Totally.
I do want to respect your time. So if you wouldn't mind, is there anything you want to let us know about your Reset3 program?
Yeah, it's a 12-week program. There's one-on-one coaching, and it's basically to reset those old traumatic memories that are changing your perception. And then at the same time, we're teaching you how to upgrade your neuroception so that you can modify the incoming things in your life while you're changing the old, like childhood stuff. So we've seen some like pretty dramatic changes in people. It started off as a chronic pain program, reprogramming pain patterns. But what I've realized is it's mostly parents saying, oh my God, this is changing the way I'm raising my children, because it's all about teaching neurodevelopment. And that happens before the age of 14. So it's really valuable for parents for sure. Oh, and you can find it at welcome.reset3.ca. It's totally online too, so you don't have to be located in Canada to take it.
Okay. Perfect. If I could just ask you for one last thing in regards to this, is there anything that we can do, any type of exercise that we can do for ourselves to do you have an exercise that we could go through with you?
Yeah. So I could show you like a breathing pattern.
Okay.
Yeah. So I like to, I don't really know what it's called, like sort of flutter the lips, like because that also sparks up the vagus nerve. So if we do 3 counts inhaling and then 6 counts exhaling, but doing the as you exhale. Okay. So we can go through that.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Sorry, I should have licked my lips before.
I know. I was going to say, I got stuck.
Yeah. So lick the lips, inhale, 1, 2, 3, exhale.
Oh, that's a long time.
It is. It's longer than you want to do.
Right.
Like just intuitively.
Okay.
And that's how you can sort of gauge whether or not, like how that sort of like balance in the autonomic nervous system, because your brain wants to inhale again because it has that like fight or flight. We need oxygen again.
Right.
But you just want to chill out. You're not going to starve yourself of oxygen by extending that exhale.
You actually do more you're able to actually take in more oxygen on your next breath if you do get that full exhalation.
Yeah.
That's great.
And honestly, the actual count doesn't matter. So the 3 and 6, those numbers don't matter. You want the ratio to matter. So whatever you can comfortably inhale, for some people it'll be 2, for some people it'll be 5. You just want to double the exhale.
Okay. And are you looking to extend that over time? Are you trying to get longer inhales and exhales? Is that like a goal that you're...
Yeah, because the slower, I mean, you'll open your rib cage up with breath practice, but the longer something takes to do, the more your brain goes, okay, we have the time to do it. There's nothing unsafe about our environment if we can stop and do this for so long.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So much great information. I'm thinking about myself and how I handle my household, how I deal. I'm a very anxious person. So this spoke to me so much because I'm that 80-20. I'm definitely, I've gotten better. I used to be very much a person of relaxation. And, as I'm thinking about it, do you notice that some people need more, like those of us that are introverts? Do we need more of this?
Everyone has their own relative amount. Everyone's going to take a different amount of relaxation time to actually be relaxed. It's just like falling asleep. Some people fall asleep as soon as they hit the pillow. Some people are up for 3 hours. So we're all very different. And usually that's based on our environment that we've been living in and how we perceive it.
So those of us who fall asleep the minute we hit the pillow, that means that we're pretty much relaxed? Or does that mean that we've been run so...
Yeah, it's usually that sympathetic burnout because that 20% fight or flight is a reserve. So that's like how like glycogen in the muscle, there's only so much of it. And we tend to say our fat stores are unlimited. You can think of it like that. So fight or flight is limited. You only have so much sugar that you can send to your muscles to run away. You only have so much time that you can run away from a predator before you give up and you shut down. And that's actually, I didn't get into this, but a lot of reptiles do the freeze. So it's fight, flight, or freeze. So they'll freeze and they'll play dead. That is a massive sympathetic fight or flight state because they're like, okay, I'm going to pretend I'm dead or I'm dead. So that translates to today cases of like domestic violence where the women don't leave. They're shut down. So it's like a continuum of like freeze, fight or flight, rest and digest, social engagement. So social engagement is where you want to be. If you're in rest and digest, you're still so exhausted that you don't feel like being social with people. So it's kind of a continuum.
This is fascinating. I'm just I'm thinking because my husband, he works in law enforcement. So he is one of those where it's like ride high for so long. So then he comes down and he then veggies in front of the TV and doesn't like that social engagement. So he's constantly going back and forth. And it's probably because he's so high. But he's never going back to the middle.
So he never reaches social engagement. He's like stuck in this continuum of like highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and lows. He might, people can someday go into that freeze mode where they turn into a procrastinator or like the domestic violence example type thing. It's just a nervous system. It's a total nervous system neuroception of your environment. It's trying to protect you. So if not leaving feels safer, then you'll go into that freeze state. And that's why like the grieving stage, there's denial. Well, that's your freeze state. And then there's the anger. That's your fight or flight. Then there's acceptance. That's rest and digest. Then social engagement. You're over it. You're through it.
That's great.
Yeah. They should teach this in public school, high school, right? Like we don't even know our own bodies. It's crazy to me.
Yeah. And then social engagement creates its own stressors for people now.
Yes.
So it's this constant situation.
Totally. Yeah. We're like humans are designed to be in tribes. So we're isolating people, and we all needed that rest and digest mode when the pandemic first hit. Like, it was glorious. Like, people were saying, oh my God, like, and it was awesome. But now we're losing that social engagement. We're fearful to engage with other human beings because we're being told that they're like, don't go near them type thing.
Right. Well, I definitely want to respect your time. I don't want to take up any more of it, but it has been so wonderful to be able to speak with you. I've enjoyed this so much, and I hope to continue to learn from you. And I'm watching your Instagram. I'm like, this is so good. I love it.
Oh, amazing. Thank you.
So I hope you enjoyed learning from Dr. Alyssa as much as I did. She provided us with a wealth of information on how we can not only practice getting into a more relaxed state, but also how so many things we are doing in our own household has an effect on our children's stress and anxiety, and how we can help alleviate some of it for them. Please make sure to head to welcome.reset3.ca to receive a free downloadable along with valuable mind, body, biofield information through emails from her. And also, make sure to follow her on Instagram at Reset3 for more great information and tips. I truly hope you enjoyed this interview with Dr. Alyssa, as she provided us with so many great actionable steps that we can begin taking today to help raise healthier humans. Make sure to also join us over in our Form Fit Mom community, where we share more information from our podcasts, provide movement tips, and dive deeper into all things healthy living. Check out the show notes for direct links to all of the above, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week.